So, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of you from different corners of the world. It's fantastic to see so many of you here for this exciting session of talking interoperability. In today's session, we'll spotlight Azerbaijan's incredible journey of digital transformation. And I'd like to start by extending a warm welcome to our distinguished guest speakers, our panel of discussants, and of course, to each and every one of you joining us today. Your presence and participation are what make the discussion so enriching, and thank you for being the supporters and champions of our digital convergence initiative. As you can see from the slide, my name is Li Yuan. I'm the Digital Social Protection Specialist at the International Labour Organization. It's my absolute pleasure to be your host and moderator today. Next slide, please. And this session will take us on a deep dive into Azerbaijan's remarkable progress in transforming its social protection system and social services through digitalization and interoperability. We are very lucky to have two esteemed speakers from Azerbaijan's DOST Digital Innovation Center to walk us through their digital journey, showcasing the cutting-edge solutions they've implemented to improve social services. And following the presentation, we'll have the chance to hear reflections and insights from our expert discussants. And towards the end of the session, we'll open up the floor for any burning questions you have. So just a few quick housekeeping points before we get started. First of all, please feel free to ask any questions anytime using the Q&A function. We'll address as many as we can throughout the session. And the chat box is open for sharing comments or relevant resources, so don't hesitate to engage with your fellow participants. We also have the simultaneous interpretation available. So just click the globe icon in your control bar to select the language of your preference. And finally, today's session is being recorded and will be available on the DCI website later on. And for those who are new to our Talking Interoperability series, please allow me to quickly introduce DCI, which is short for Digital Convergence Initiative. DCI is a collaborative effort from multiple stakeholders, all working towards one shared goal to create a harmonized and interoperable digital ecosystem for social protection. DCI advocates for developing standards that promote innovation to make digital social protection system more interoperable, user-friendly, and scalable. We also want to reduce the time and cost of implementing solutions at a country and program level. And of course, we aim to create that ecosystem where programs and the countries can combine different components from various suppliers, ensure future-proof systems no matter the policy or system maturity. Through the sessions like Talking Interoperability, we bring technical experts and country experiences to forefront, sharing the practical nuts and bolts of how interoperability is achieved in social protection systems around the world. And as a community, we also explore the challenges and brainstorm potential solutions together. Next slide, please. So if you're interested, all the recordings of our past events are available on the website. So definitely worth checking out. So now let me introduce you to our distinguished speakers and the discussants for today. So first, we have the Ms. Sabina Huseynova. She's the project manager with over 5 years of experience in international cooperation. She's a project manager with over 5 years of she's specialized in effective communication and relationship building with partners. She's skilled in facilitating cross-cultural interactions and overseeing projects in diverse professional environments. Currently, she's serving as an advisor to the Director on International Cooperation at the DOST Innovation Digital Innovation Center. Next is Mr. Orkhan Salahov, who has over 10 years of experience in leading the development and implementation of e-services and innovation projects for the Ministry of Labor and Social Protection of a Population in Azerbaijan. His work focuses on enhancing the efficiency and quality of public services and social protection programs through digital transformation and user-centric design. He's currently serving as a deputy director of the DOST Digital Innovation Center. We are also joined by Mr. Andrea Martin, a social protection and digital expert at the World Bank, with expertise in management information systems, social registries, and payment delivery. Over the past decade, he has advised governments and international organizations helping implement digital solutions for social protection programs in over 15 countries. And lastly, Mr. Jeremi Joslin is the executive director of OpenSPP. It's an open source social protection platform. And he's also the co-founder and the CTO of New Logic, an impact-driven digital consultancy. With over 20 years of experience in tech, he now focuses on digital public goods and social protection solutions. And he's passionate about technology, digital sovereignty, and innovation. We're truly honored to have such a diverse and knowledgeable panel today. And without further ado, Sabina and Orkhan, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I hope you can see and hear me well, right? So, dear participants, welcome to today's webinar. Thank you for being here, and we also look for the forward and informative discussion today. As mentioned, our presentation will be dedicated to the case of Azerbaijan in the field of social digital solutions. Let's take a look at the content. So we divided the content of today's presentation into the 8 main directions. We will talk about the context and digitalization timeline in the social field of our country. We will talk about the establishment and activities of the DOST Digital Innovation Center. We will talk about the centralized electronic information system, proactive mechanism, unified social registry. We will delve into the technical architecture in this field, as well as discuss our future plans. So starting with the context, currently the population of Azerbaijan is a little bit more than 10 million. And with the social services, the Ministry of Labor covers over 9 million of the population. The gender ratio in this number is quite equal for females and males. On the right-hand side of the slide, you can see some statistics related to the number of the social payments recipients. We have over 1 million of citizens who receive pension. We have approximately 2 million of people who have official labor contracts. The number of those who receive allowances, targeted state social assistance by the number of the family members, and the number of the issued persons was over 5 million. The most noticeable fact is that the eldest person recorded in our social system is the lady who is currently 134 years old, and she receives pension for age. The Ministry of Labor and Social Protection of Population of the Republic of Azerbaijan covers the whole life cycle of the citizens, starting from newborns and till the death of the person. For this person, we have several institutions that are included in the structure of the ministry or those which function under the ministry. For example, there is State Employment Agency under the Ministry of Labor who works with unemployed and employed people. We have the State Medical Social Expertise and Rehabilitation Agency responsible for monitoring the activities in the field of disability as well as rehabilitation. We have State Social Protection Fund responsible for monitoring of the social payments and pensions. So there are several institutions that cover the activities which are under the Ministry of Labor. Social system digitalization timeline. Conditionally, we divide this timeline into the 4 main periods. We have the initial digitalization that took about 10 years and was the fundament for further processes. The second stage, which we call expansion and integration, that took like 3 years. The advanced digital transformation. During this period, we introduced more advanced digital projects, as well as since 2024, we has already another strategy, other purposes that stand in front of us, and we call this period data-driven proactive approach. Now, let's take a look a little bit deeper into these periods. So, like one by one, starting from initial digitalization, the computerization was initiated within the structure of the Ministry of Labor in 2003. This is the beginning of all the processes. At that time, all the reports were collected autonomously in each region of our country. Also, at that time, the information about the pensions was gathered in the simplest program, which was called FoxPro. Starting from 2006, we created the personal accounting system, as well as established the local networks in our regions. In 2008, there was the setup of targeted assistance and pension systems as accounting systems. I want to mention the 2011 specifically because at that time, we already started the data pinning. So we started to link the data of citizens with their personal identification number on the ID. Also, in this year, the infrastructure was established, the corporate networking was initiated, as well as the first web portal was launched. In 2013, we introduced our first digital project, which was aimed at the appointment of pensions through the centralized call center. I also need to mention that this first digital project received the certificate at the International Social Security Association Good Practice Awards. So this was our first digital project, and it gathered its own popularity in the international area. The second stage, expansion and integration, why it is called so. In 2014, we introduced our first system. We started the initial integration with multiple state institutions. So integration with the databases of other institutions started in 2014 in our country. We launched our first e-service on the sample of the billing tables. We introduced our first e-cabinet for citizens also in this year, as well as the establishment of the CIS happened at that period. Advanced digital transformation that started in 2018. So it started with the decree of the president aimed at the expansion of the usage of e-services in the fields of labor, employment, social protection, and social security. In that year, the ministry also introduced the e-social internet portal, which is called the Unified Social Register of our country. I will talk a little bit more later during this webinar. In 2019, we introduced our first proactive services as well as launched the e-references module. In 2021, which is also a notable year for us, we started the integration with the nationwide information exchange tool of our country called Digital Bridge and Digital Finance. In 2022, we moved forward to bigger and more advanced projects with the application of big data, introduction of the smart DOS self-service desks, as well as chatbot function. In here, you can see some statistics. So as the result of all these processes, we were able to cover the population of over 87%. We were able to digitalize the state social services with over 90%, which is equal to 159 services. We were able to integrate with the systems and platforms of over 80 state and non-state entities. If we talk a little bit more about the situation in our country in terms of ID. Till 2019, in our country, we had old generation IT cards. From 2019, new generation ID cards with chip on them and all the data inside it. And according to the recent decree, starting from 2024, we have the digital ID. So it was announced that identity information provided through the refreshed MyGov application is considered every bit as legal as physical ID card in our country. Now let's talk about the DOS Digital Innovation Center. So as I mentioned earlier, in 2018, there was a decree of the president on the expansion of the usage of e-services in the fields of ministry's activities. And as a result, or let's say as one of the steps in this direction, in 2021, under the Ministry of Labor and the DOS agency, the DOS Digital Innovation Center was established. The center was established with the aim of accelerating the digitalization of state social services provided to citizens by the ministry, improving already existing electronic services, as well as managing all the IT services in social field from the single center. If we summarize what had happened. So prior to the establishment of the Innovation Center, the ministry, as well as its subordinate institutions such as State Employment Agency, State Social Protection Fund, and others, they had separate IT departments. The activities of those IT departments, they were mainly focused on help desk. They did have several digital projects, but they were managed by those institutions, not in a centralized way. And in 2021, after the establishment of the Innovation Center, all these IT departments, they were consolidated in one institution. And in here, you can see some group directions in which the DOS Digital Innovation Center provides its services. The core strategy of the center itself revolves around simplifying and digitizing the service provision processes for the ministry by implementing innovative solutions. In line with this, we have several other key tasks that we aim to accomplish that are ensuring the availability of our digital services, increasing the number of services that function based on the proactive mechanism, ensuring the stability and sustainability of our systems, enhancing the level of information security in our field. Ultimately, the IT policy of our center is driven by the objective of ensuring and enhancing the citizen satisfaction. This is the shared priority for both the ministry and the center. In here, you can see the structure. So on this slide, we presented just the IT-related departments. So we have the infrastructure department with several mentioned activities, information security, software development, project management, data analytics, as well as technical support. In the center, we have a little bit more than 200 staff members, and they provide services to approximately 8,000 employees of the ministry. In here, you can see the whole situation with the state social services in Azerbaijan. So the ministry provides 159 services to citizens. 145 services, which is equal to over 91%, are already electronic, they're digital. Out of 145, we have 56 services that are provided based on the proactive mechanism. On this side of the slide, you can see the top 5 services where the biggest number of the e-applications was recorded in 2024, and the statistics for each of the service. The general number of the e-applications recorded in our systems for 2024 is already over 383 million. Now coming to our systems. The basic and fundamental system of the Ministry of Labor is the Centralized Electronic Information System. We call it shortly CIS. You can see the screenshot of the CIS. So this is the main interface, the first page. The first square is about the programs. If we click the green square, all the subsystems that are inside the CIS, they will appear, and the user can enter any system in case if the person has the permission to enter and use the subsystem. This one is the news, internal news for the ministry, the administration panel in order to manage the permissions of usage, the help desk panel, as well as the personal cabinet of employee. So all the directions of the ministry's activities, they can be grouped into the four main elements. And during the provision of state services, we do obtain the information from external information systems. Those are state bodies and non-state entities. In order to arrange this smooth information exchange, the smooth, let's say, data exchange, there was the CIS, which is the bridge for the integrated operations and integrated functions. So it links both the internal subsystems as well as external information systems of other entities. So it can be presented this way. If we summarize, CIS is the centralized repository for electronic information related to social services. These are labor, employment, social protection, and social security. It was established in 2014. It functions based on the single window approach. It consists of 19 subsystems presented on this slide, as well as 4 registers. So as you can see, all the directions they are presented here: employment, disability, pension subsystem, labor and employment, social payments, and so on. So this CIS allows to keep and monitor all the data in these directions from the centralized, in a centralized manner. So in here, how the CIS was established and expanded. In 2014, the ministry introduced the first subsystems. It was the disability insurance, the subsystem for the centralized call center and other subsystem. And we understood that when we increase the number of the subsystems, there should be one, the main one, which will function as an umbrella for all other subsystems. That's why the CIS itself was established in 2014 as well. Then it was gradually expanding. So the CIS is umbrella, and under that umbrella, we have interlinked subsystems related to various activities of the ministry. Each of them has lots of data inside it, and the data is monitored by the separate subsystem as well. In here, you can see in blue squares information about the 4 main registers, but I need to mention that in here we presented only subsystems and registers that are reflected in the legislation. The ministry itself has quite many other databases, registries, and subsystems not presented on this slide. This is just what's inside the CIS. Proactive social payments mechanism. This is one of the innovative solutions implemented in our country by the Ministry of Labor. So why we decided to introduce the new mechanism in the fields of social payments? There were several factors. First of all, the lack of awareness of social rights by citizens. Some citizens who live far from the capital, they were not or are not aware about the social rights. They may have them, but as they're not aware about those social rights, they do not apply to any institution. There were some delays in addressing citizen appeals, especially those related to social payments. the excessive documentation requirements. So prior to 2019, there were some documentations requirements in order, for example, to provide the pension appointment service or some other services. And of course, the time and cost burden. In order to eliminate these negative factors, the ministry decided that it would be good to introduce the new mechanism of the social payments appointment. So it wasn't implemented, the mechanism wasn't implemented right away. There were some steps prior to the introduction of this mechanism. First of all, the establishment of the CIS, which is the centralized system in the middle of all others. Integration of data, both with internal subsystems as well as with the external ones. Electronization or digitalization of social services, making them electronic ones without the need for manual processing of data or manual applications. Data cleaning, so after the integration and with the data coming from other subsystems, the process of review and verification of the collected information about citizens. Only after these steps, we were able to introduce the new mechanism. So what's the proactive mechanism itself? Proactive mechanism is the function which allows to identify, acknowledge, and fulfill the social rights of our citizens without their formal written request. So the function identifies the information or social right about the citizen. It's the first step, gathering data. Processing, so the process of verification of the data comes to the stage when the data about the citizen is checked based on the internal information coming from subsystems as well as with the external data. The decision-making process when the mechanism without human intervention decides, for example, whether the social right of the person should be realized, whether, for example, the person should be appointed the pension or payment and some other details based on the service provided. And the last two channels, they are about they are informative channels. So information about the realized social right sent to the bank for order the plastic card or for opening the account, as well as the information about the process done sent to the citizen to its personal number. So this is just the informative message that the person receives. For example, in the case of the retirement pension appointment, the person receives SMS where it's written that we congratulate you on reaching the retirement age. Your pension has been calculated and appointed. This will be the amount of that pension, and you can receive your pension or retirement card within the particular number of days, a specific branch of the bank. So this is the informative message that is sent to the citizen. In this presentation, we provided two samples. We have 56 proactive services, but we decided to share the sample of two ones. So the first one is the retirement age pension appointment. This is how it's done, the scheme itself. First, on the birthday day of the person, the mechanism identifies that the person reached the retirement age. This information comes with the integration with the Ministry of Internal Affairs based on the personal identification number details of the person. Then the two stages, they are about the verification process. So the verification is done through the integration with the systems of the Ministry of Justice to check whether the person is alive or no. The third stage is the verification of the pension capital. So this is done with our internal subsystems. The mechanism checks whether the person has sufficient pension capital. In case if the person does have the pension capital, then the decision-making process. the pension is appointed to that person. In case if the person doesn't have, then the social payment is appointed to that person. So the decision-making process is done by the mechanism itself, again, without human intervention. The last two channels, again, informative ones, order of a plastic card, information sent to the bank institution, as well as information about the appointment of the pension is sent as an SMS notification to the citizen. This is the sample of the service of lump sum childbirth allowance. So actually the scheme itself is the same. There is initial data that comes either from the Ministry of Internal Affairs based on the personal identification number of the person, or for example, initial registration data that comes from the Ministry of Justice regarding the newborns. Verification whether the parents of the child, they are alive or no, whether they are taxpayers employed or no, and then again, the decision-making process, the system, the mechanism makes the decision on what should be appointed and what should be the amount of the appointed payment. In here, we can see some numbers. So for the first time, this proactive mechanism was introduced in January 2019 on the service of the retirement age pension appointment. The average daily number of the proactive assignments is 889, and the maximum recorded number is over 25,000 for one day. In here, you can see some statistics related for the full year cycle from 2019 to the end of the 2023. And on the right side of the slide, there are statistics. There are statistics related to the 2024. So the total number of the proactive assignments in 2024 with the distribution of the particular service types, it's over 170,000. Advantages, why this mechanism works and why there are several advantages of this mechanism. So first of all, as I mentioned, that's the automated identification, acknowledgement, and fulfillment of social rights of citizens. This is interlinked with some other advantages, such as elimination of the requirement for paper document collection. For example, prior to this mechanism, when the person reached the retirement age, he has to navigate through several governmental authorities to collect like 6-7 documents and then present them to the state social protection fund under the ministry. Now there is no need for that, because all the information which before was on paper now can be obtained through the integration with other institutions. There is no need to bring it. So this is the minimization of time and cost expenditures for our citizens. Also, this is the elimination of the need for direct contact with government agencies. So we contribute to the reduction of citizen official interactions. Now let's move forward to the functional architecture. We took a look at the innovative mechanism that we implemented, as well as the system, which is in the core of all the processes, and how it looks like the structure and architecture itself. First, I will start one by one and then present the whole picture. The citizens can apply to the ministry and to its subordinate institutions through several service delivery channels. Those are traditional ones, such as, let's say, call center. This is the centralized call center of our institution, 142, that are on site through the DOS service centers or self-service desks in our DOS centers, as well as there are some digital options, such as e-social platform, e-gov platform, as well as MyGov. So we have traditional methods of application for the services, as well as digital options. In here, in terms of the access to the digital applications in our country, we have the single nationwide sign-on mechanism. So this is the unified entry point for all the platforms, We call it digital login. Inside the digital login, we have several methods of authentication in signatures. First of all, that's the face recognition biometrics, SIMA signature. It's presented in here. That's the application which can be downloaded. There is face recognition process, and then the check with the personal identification number details. The mobile signature called Asan İmzam. We have SIMA USB token, which is mainly used in the institutions. We have access based on the credentials of the personal identification number, as well as the e-signature for the employees of the bank. So the single sign-on system in our country is also common for all the institutions, and it's called digital login. This is how the whole digital ecosystem of the ministry looks like. We took a look at how the citizen can apply to the ministry and to its subordinate institutions. We also checked how the access to the digital options, digital platforms is organized, digital login. We have the CIS, which is in the government cloud, G-Cloud. And in order to, during the service provision, obtain the information about the citizens from the initial source and organize this smooth integration, there is the Digital Bridge project in our country, which was initiated in 2021. Through the Digital Bridge, the ministry was able to organize the integration with the systems and platforms of over 80 state and non-state entities. So the Digital Bridge is the unified information exchange tool in our country. If we talk a little bit, if I will give a little bit more information about this project. So prior to the development of the bridge system, each government agency managed its own data and individually responded to citizen public service inquiries. However, in order to ensure a competent non-stop shop model of digital government services, which are fully digitized and proactive, and to provide better services to citizens, various agencies, they had the obligation to transfer the crucial information in a safe and quick manner. So taking into account that there was an emerged need for such an information exchange tool, the bridge system was created to deliver the required interoperability between government structures. Before building the bridge system, we applied the leading example of the X-Road system. And afterwards, based on the lessons learned and the experience gathered throughout the implementation process, a more developed system, the bridge project, was created in compliance with the needs and requirements of the country. Up for now, billions of transactions and interactions have been realized through this bridge. In here, we also have the data centers. So we have both physical and virtual infrastructure. And in our case, the network and server infrastructure currently operate in a clustered configuration. We have the CIS, access to which is also possible through the e-signature mentioned. We have subsystems that are presented as a list in here. And we have subordinate institutions that can access the CIS and, let's say, use the subsystems inside it based on their, let's say, workloads and the activities that are performed by them. This is the sample of the integration. So as I mentioned, the ministry was able to arrange the integration with systems and platforms of over state and non-state entities. This is just the table sample of what information we obtained from other institutions. For example, from the Ministry of Science and Education, we obtain information about the diplomas, which is further reflected in the Citizens Cabinet in the Unified Labor and Employment System. From the State Tax Service, for example, we get information about the taxpayers. From the State Examination Center, information about civil servants, and so on. So this is just one example. There is data that we share with other state and non-state entities as well. This is just the example of the particular institutions. So public-private sectors partnership. In 2021, when the digital bridge system was established, there was one component related to the digital finance. So this is the information exchange tool, which interlinks the systems with non-state entities. That are banks, insurance institutions, utility providers, credit organizations, payment systems, and some others. So in here, you can see some statistics starting from 2021 till 2024. If we talk based on the example, prior to this information exchange tool, when the person was coming to the bank with the request and desire to receive the credit, the person had to navigate and bring some references about employment, income, and so on. But with this digital finance information exchange tool, the person just gives, in case if he decides, he can give the permission for the bank institution to obtain the data about the person from the relevant institution through this digital finance. Now our citizens can obtain the credit within 30 seconds at the bank institutions. So this is about the public-private sectors partnership and data exchange in this way. So there is a wide range of components in our current data warehouse environment. So we have the green plum OLAP database as the main component here. After the data is processed, it's placed in the ClickHouse columnar database as the final destination. Orchestration of data ETL, ELT processes is performed by the Apache Airflow, and open metadata is used for metadata management. Collected processed data is visualized using Tableau and Apache Superset. As I mentioned earlier, integrations with our agencies, with other agencies, are conducted through the Digital Bridge platform. And the Digital Bridge platform utilizes the predefined data formats and standards to ensure interoperability for data exchange. APIs and their specifications are defined for each integration party and are cataloged in a centralized repository. This catalog includes both user interface documentation as well as technical specifications for API usage. However, these documents are generally intended for internal use and are not published on a publicly accessible website. Parties involved in the data exchange have access to these resources, and the data integration is implemented using various methods, including web services, APIs, point-to-point integration, and enterprise service bus technologies. Also, there are several methods that are employed to ensure compliance with standards. These are technical audits. So for each data exchange process, they're the subject to technical audits by the technical teams to ensure the APIs complied with the established standards. There is testing environment as well as the regular monitoring to ensure compliance with the standards. Also, the database infrastructure in our institution is currently set up in a clustered configuration to support load balancing. The following slide illustrates the cluster architecture for various databases within the current environment. I'm not gonna go into the details. There are just 3 main samples. As I mentioned earlier, we have quite many subsystems for the particular direction of the ministry's activities. And there is lots of data in each of them. In order to be able to keep the data, monitor the data, there is one subsystem, which is called analytical subsystem. And for work with this analytic subsystem, we have this separate department, data management department. So in here, in 6 main directions, we just presented information on what work is done in this direction. So the improvement of updating of 733 dashboards in this subsystem, the keeping reports and projects up to date, the automation of the reports through this subsystem, and the simplification of the reporting process. New reports can be generated based on the incoming requests. Also, we do organize the integrity of the database through the risky data detection. So we may have some technical risks, we may have the risk related to data, but both of these types of risks, they are monitored and the relevant actions and measures are taken to address them. And the data is inventoried, and any information that does not conform to the structure or is incorrect is corrected. Along with this, we do apply some security measures and privacy questions. All these directions can be grouped into 4 main elements. So this is the access control and controls and authentication. So there is role-based access controls when the permissions are granted to our employees based on the user roles, which ensures that only authorized users can access our specific subsystems and platforms. We utilize e-signatures. We use the privileged access management as well as access logs. So the database activity monitoring tracks all the user activity, providing insights into the potential threats, as well as we apply the web application firewall. In terms of the second direction, we regularly create the copies of our data to ensure the availability in case of system failures or data loss. We develop strategies to restore critical systems and data in the event of the disasters. In the direction of network security measures, we use firewalls to block unauthorized access and prevent malicious traffic, as well as spam filtering is implemented in our institution for the email domain to protect against unwanted and potentially harmful emails. Of course, the monitoring is done in this direction too, 24/7 monitoring, the vulnerability scanning, as well as employee training. As I mentioned, the ministry has approximately 8,000 employees, and as the experts in the DOS Digital Innovation Center in the field of the security, they educate the employees of the ministry as well as its subordinate institutions on data security, on promoting awareness and minimizing risks through the responsible behavior. Also, I need to mention that a month ago, our institution was able to obtain the ISO certificate on the Information Security Management System. Unified Social Registry. Well, in our country in 2018, we introduced the e-social portal, which is called the Unified Social Registry of our country. So this is the platform which allows our citizens to track all the data about them in the social field. They can check the pension capital. There is no need even to click extra buttons or make any request to the ministry. They can just open the personal cabinet in the e-social portal and check their pension capital with the distribution of the income from the places of work. There is opportunity to track applications that are done to the ministry and to its subordinate institutions, also track calls done to the centralized call center 142. There is opportunity to check notifications related to labor contracts, the IFA references, and some other benefits. In order to make this portal accessible to the wider audience of our society, we introduced the mobile application, which is available on iOS and Android. The number of users of this portal is increasing on a daily basis. The registration for this portal is also possible with the e-signature, as I mentioned earlier, through the digital login. One of the functions in the e-social portal is the e-references function, which allows our citizens to download e-references related, 30 types of the e-references related to the activities of the ministry. Up to now, from 2019 to 2024, already over 4 million e-references were downloaded, and for 2024, this number is over 200,000. There is also statistics related to the most downloaded type of e-references. The e-references have the barcode and QR on them, which allows other institutions to validate the authenticity of these e-references. Advantages. So I think we have a little time left for presentation. That's why I'm not going to go deep inside the advantages, but I want to mention only the main one. This is the application of the principle of public control by citizens on their personal data in the field of state social services. So some information is available on the personal cabinet of citizens, and there is no need to make any requests or come to the ministry for this information. These are just some statistics related to the usage of e-social. So we have the distribution by age. As you can see, mostly it is used by the people within the age range of 30-34. The number of views. The number of views increased sharply during the pandemic in 2020, as you can see. And on the other years, we can see that the number of users of mobile application is increasing. In here, some statistics about the e-references. So we have e-references introduced since 2018. And what we can observe that the number of downloads is going down. And why is it happening? Because now the institutions, through the information exchange through the digital bridge, they do not need already to request any paper-based documentations or e-references from citizens. With the permission, they can just obtain that data through the digital bridge. In order to make this smooth transition to the digital projects and digital services, there are still some elder population who are not digital literate enough. For this purpose, in 2018, the DOST agency was established under the Ministry of Labor, and the DOST agency had several, let's say, objectives in front of it. So first of all, that's the improvement of the quality of services in the social field. That's the opportunity to increase the transparency and ensure the application of the innovative solutions. Also, the DOST one-stop shop model allows to make smooth transition to the e-services, prevent bureaucracy, as well as make the enhancement of citizen satisfaction. These are service provision centers, but the centralized one provided under the umbrella of DOST agency. Those centers, they operate based on the one-stop shop principle and serve as front offices that provide citizens with social services. The abbreviation of DOST stands for the translation in our language as friend. So we provide services for those citizens who need those social assistance, social services, elder population, disabled population, and other categories of the society. In here, you can see the sample of the service provision, how it looks like with Windows. And also, the Smart DOS service point was put into operation in 2022. Generally, those services centers, they provide 159 services in 15 various directions. Issues addressed. So we did have some challenges during the process of digitalization of our state social services. What we did, we noticed that we have fragmented information systems, and as a result, we decided to introduce the CIS, Centralized Electronic Information System. We noticed that there may be coordination difficulties as every institution under the ministry has IT departments. The DOS Digital Innovation Center was established. In order to apply the principle of the control by citizens over their public personal data, we introduced the e-social portal, and to increase the quality of state social services, the one-stop shop DOS model was introduced. Must have what is important in this process of integration and digitalization. So that's the robust and effective digital infrastructure, collaboration between different government bodies, compatible and up-to-date technological infrastructure is also important. Impact. So there are several elements where we can categorize notice that there was an impact. I will mention, for example, the first one. I said that we introduced the e-references function, but according to the recent decree in our country, all labor contracts, they are already signed digitally with the e-signature. So labor contracts in our country, they are already digital, which allows us to minimize the usage of paper in this field. Therefore, we indirectly contribute to the conservation of the nature. The opportunity to save time, the quickly obtain the information in terms of state queries, if before, without the digital bridge and integration, 15, sometimes even 30 days were needed to exchange the information. Now with data integration, it's 2-5 minutes. And some other impact results that we may notice. Future roadmap. So on the left slide, there are just some steps. So we plan to continue our digitalization efforts as well as expand the integration with state and non-state entities. We will work and continue the evaluation of our subsystems. We work on upgrading their functionality. We work on increasing the digital literacy among the elder population, among those who live quite far from the capital and center. We work on provision of the data accuracy. We monitor the data, we check the data, and other activities in that direction, as well as the transition to the AI, which is also in our plans to apply some elements of the AI in the state social services provision field. Also, we are planning and working on developing a data lakehouse architecture to optimize our internal resources and data operations. For this purpose, the planned environment will incorporate some Minio for S3 compatible storage, Apache Iceberg for table format management, and the analytical database to query processing. I will just, with my last slide, sum up. So what we did 20 years from 2003 till 2024, it was digitalization. So it was optimizing IT resources, making our technical support service quite flexible, implementing measures in terms of ensuring the security and reliability of our information systems and databases operation, ensuring the integrity of our databases, as well as improving the digital projects, making them more advanced and upgrading them. Starting from 2025, we will implement the data-driven proactive approach when we plan to move forward with the proactive social services. we will work on the digital literacy and provide our staff with the training on how to work with the data in order to further enable informed and data-driven decision-making, as well as I mentioned, integration of the AI technologies elements in our social field. That's it from my side. So I will stop presentation.
No, thank you so much, Sabina, for this fantastic and very comprehensive presentation. I think participants are really probably agree with me. It's truly impressive to see how Azerbaijan is leveraging the digital innovation to revolutionize social services. I think the work done by the DOST Digital Innovation Center is completely a game changer, especially the way it centralized the IT management and accelerates the digital transformation of the public services in your country. Personally, I was taking a lot of notes as well. So I think the CEIS really showcased how the streamlined data and interagency collaboration can improve that efficiency, reduce the fragmentation, so that you can better serve the public, the citizens, right? And also the unified social registry is such a powerful tool to offer the citizens that single, easy to navigate point of access for all their services. So I cannot wait to see how Azerbaijan continues to progress in this digital transformation journey in the years to come. And I know many of the attendees are as well. There's just a lot to reflect on, but before we dive into the Q&A sessions, let's hear from our discussants for their insights. I'm sure that they also have some questions to be answered. So Andrea, Jeremy, so over to you.
Okay, thank you very much. Again, yeah, thank you very much for the presentation. As Li Yuan said, it was a very comprehensive and very interesting, a lot of learning from your journey. In particular, I got really interested on the proactive side of what you presented. And I had some questions. So how do you decide when a service should become proactive and when it should not? Did you have any example of things where initially you thought that, yeah, maybe it's good to go proactive, and then decided, oh no, but because of this reason, maybe proactive is actually not a good solution? Yeah, I would love to learn about this.
Thank you very much for your question, Jeremy, and thank you for your points, Leon. Mr. Salahov, would you like to address this question, or I will respond?
Yes, I can answer this question. Generally, you see in our presentation, we try to electronize the services which we provide to the citizens. And the proactive mechanism is the best way to provide these services to the citizens in an easy way. Because as I mentioned, Sabina, in her presentation, we have some people who don't know their rights, and they didn't and don't know how to say correct way. Their rights didn't know. That's why we try to electronize and digitalize our services, and after that to establish a proactive mechanism. Proactive mechanism, this is the way we don't need to the citizen to apply in our establishment system. The system automatically works and establishes the people rights. When we established digitalization and electronization our services, and after that to put that electronization services to the proactive mechanism, our aim to set all of the mechanism to the proactive way. Our challenges in this way, we have not enough information, maybe some institution not enough information for about the citizens. It's our how to say big challenge in the proactive way. That's why we look if all information we can get as an institution or through the services, we try to proactive to serve the services through proactive mechanism. If I can answer.
Yes, I can
No,
just
yeah, very
make one
Go ahead, yeah.
addition if that's possible. Yes, so just to sum up, so it's all about the data, Jeremy, as you mentioned. If we do have the sufficient data that can be used for the verification processes and the data that comes with the integrations from other authorities, then yes, then we can decide that yes, this service can be a transition from the digital one to the proactive one. If no, the data is insufficient, then we keep the service electronic. If that's not possible as well, we may maintain some services manual. In this case, we will keep them in our DOS centers. For example, there may be some challenges with the data related of the, for example, death benefits, the data about the death of the person. Then yes, due to the insufficient data that comes from other relevant authorities, we are unable to process the one-time payment for the funeral or death benefit. So it's all about the sufficiency of data. If we see it's enough, then we can make a decision to make the smooth transition to the proactive mechanism. If no, then let's say we'll keep some time at electronic one or manual one, and then when the data is fully and it's clean, then we will be able to make the service proactive too.
Okay, and just a quick small question to follow up. Can proactive be nudging the person to tell this person that, hey, you have access to this because you did this, please fill this form to get it, or it's like really fully automated?
Well, in our case, we automated it fully. We try our citizens, we try to minimize all the efforts in this field for our citizens. Efforts, time, and costs that may arise. So what we do, we have some challenges coming as a result of this process. So what's that? That's about the digital literacy. So sometimes, even with all the process done automatically, some people may not know how to, let's say, use some portals or what to do, with whom to clarify about the payment or any proactive, let's say, details. That's why, as I mentioned in my presentation, we kept traditional methods. We kept call center, the centralized one. We kept the DOS centers. So on one side of our work, we try to make everything proactive. We try to minimize the efforts of our citizens. On the other side, we try to contribute to the increase of digital literacy. For example, our own staff members, especially like those who work with the specific projects aimed at our citizens, they go to the far regions of our country. They show how to work with the e-social portal. What are the main functions, the main features? Because you need to show to the person, if that's the person, even the elder one, we don't know what elder people they need. Maybe they want to need information about their pension, where they can find it. So we just show them on spot. With the younger generation, it's much easier. We can just organize the webinar, the informative session like this, and they will understand. We organize quite many awareness-raising events, press releases, like posts, all our subordinate institutions. But with elder population, with the disabled population, we try still target them on spot. Even, for example, in case if they're not able to access the e-social portal, the basic one, the most needed one. So what they can do, they can go to the DOS centers. We keep the physical center services. They can go to that centers, and employees, they will explain, they will show. I hope one day I will see all of you in Azerbaijan as well. We will be able to show you our DOS model. So there are two desktops. The desktop, which is seen by the employee who is explaining, and the desktop, which is seen to the citizen. So at the same time, the employee is explaining how to navigate with the signature, which window, and so on. And the citizen itself is learning. It takes time, we understand it. The digitalization process doesn't come by the way. It takes time to increase the literacy and so on, but we do work on that direction as well.
Very good, thank you. I mean, Andrea, do you want to ask a question?
Absolutely. First of all, it's a pleasure to be here, and I want to thank the presenter for the excellent presentation. I think we're all amazed by the quality of work that you've been able to do, and I think also having a timeline is extremely interesting because it helps put in perspective the work that different workers and organizations have been doing a long time, right? Because when we work with different countries and we see sometimes the expectation that changes happen overnight, and I think it's important to be conscious and also to realize that it takes time and it takes like a group effort to achieve change. This is not to discourage anyone, but to say that it's a process. So I think my first question is related exactly to this process. So you described, but could you elaborate a bit more on the kind of nudges and sort of collective effort that you had to employ to ensure that everyone came on board and rode in the same direction? Because we know that from a government perspective, the interest is to help the citizen to make everything more efficient. But then at individual level and certain times also the department might have some resistances. So if you could elaborate a bit on that, I think it would be useful. Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Andrea, for pointing out. Yes, each country has its own path, its own way in terms of the digitalization. For some, in some cases, it happens quite quicker. In our case, it took a little bit time. Coming to your question, well, it's a good point to raise because, as I mentioned in my presentation, one of the must-have points is the compatible and up-to-date infrastructure, as well as the collaboration between the entities. So in our case, sometimes, well, when all the institutions, they are at the same line, they are at the same parallel level of the digitalization, it's much easier. But regarding the social field, all the processes related to the e-services and digitalization, they are started on the government level. So they started based on the decree of the president, which was aimed at the expansion of the usage of these e-services. And you know, it's only the decree in our field. We had several legislative documents that let's say, bear the same purpose in other directions as well. That's why, for example, first we started the integrations, as you mentioned as you saw in my presentation, in 2014. But it was like point-to-point integrations. The bigger information exchange tool, it was established by the Ministry of Digital Development and Transport in 2021. So it took the several years. So, all the governmental, I would say most of the governmental authorities in our country, they do now in the process of the digitalization. That's why we're going in parallel. With most of the institutions, we organize the integration. And in case if there are any challenges, in case of the data, insufficient data issues that I mentioned previously to Jeremy, well, we communicate that. We do have the working groups, common working groups with the most important ministries with whose data we work quite closely. It can be the Ministry of Justice, the Ministry of Health in the direction of the disability assessment, with the State Tax Service. So with them, we work in the framework of the working groups, and we always try to keep in touch. We do try to discuss any issues that may arise. If, for example, there is the lack of the opportunities to make transition to the proactive service, we communicate that. We discuss our concern that we are not able to make our service digital for these reasons. And those reasons, they're not coming from us, they're coming from other institutions. So all of this is done based on the linked and quite tight collaboration and cooperation with our institutions. That's why further we're able to, let's say, collaborate with non-stated as well. As the process with the integration with the state institutions is going more or less smoothly, we're reaching quite big achievements in the fields of digitalization. We're able to make the same contribution in the public-private sector's partnership too. I don't know whether I was able to address your question.
Yes,
Yes.
thank you.
Yes, thank you. And actually, that leads me to another question related to this. And it's quite impressive. Like, you integrated with, like, I think 80 something systems, which is a lot. How did you define any standard API, any standard data format? How did you collaborate? I guess, how did you collaborate to define those standards to enable seamless communication between all these different systems?
Actually, the Ministry of Digital Development and Transport has established standards, APIs, and data protocols to facilitate seamless communication between systems. This involves communication methods and integration rules to ensure that data is exchanged consistently and accurately across different systems. Additionally, rigorous testing procedures are in place to validate the functionality and reliability of integrations before deployment. Regular communication and collaboration with all involved stakeholders ensure that integration requirements are well understood and effectively addressed.
So yes, as all the I will just add my own some notes if that's possible.
Yeah.
As mentioned by Mr. Salahov, all the integrations in our country are done through the nationwide information exchange tool. That's why the data protocols, the standardized APIs, they are established by another Ministry of Digital Development and Transport.
Okay, thank
So
you.
much. Maybe something that caught our attention and I think is very modern. Let's say, I see that you plan to transition to AI, right? So in this transition, how do you expect and what measures are you putting in place to ensure that that the systems and the processes are kept transparent, fair, and to avoid like possible risks related to the use of AI technology?
Mr. Salah, would you like to respond to this question, or?
Floor is yours, please.
Okay, thank you. So, good point, actually. Just to be honest, we're still in the early stages of this process, and we have established a dedicated unit inside our center called Data Management and Artificial Intelligence. But the recruitment of experts is still underway. So while we do have the data that could potentially be used for AI applications in the social field, We haven't yet advanced to the point where, let's say, in a bias, in a bias concerns or in other issues that may arise are relevant for us. Rest assured, all steps that are taken, they will be in compliance with our country's law on personal data protection. We do have the strategy on digitalization, but again, this is not only what's related to our institution, as we have some other actors in this field who do work on the application of AI. In terms of the social sector and what we have in our field, we're just in the beginning. We're in the beginning because it takes time to recruit some experts and to learn some business processes, because the social field is quite unique one. You need to know the business processes, even the basic ones, like how the social payment is done that way, not, for example, as it's done in some other countries. There are some specifics for each country, and I think it will take some time, and only after that we will be able to know with which projects we will go on in the social field. Right after that, any questions related to the let's say AI driven decisions or AI bias concerns, they will be in place and discussed by us.
Okay. I have a following question, actually. You just mentioned the personal data protection law. And you mentioned also, so there is a lot of data being exchanged between different ministries. So first part of my question would be, how is consent managed for internal exchange? Like, is there is a need for consent because, or is it like within the government, the data can be transparently exchanged? And you mentioned also working with private sector. So like in this case also, how is, or is there is data consent being recorded? How is it managed? Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. So, when we enter or when we access any platform, it can be the e-social portal, the registry, or any other platforms that are used by the citizens. Prior to clicking the e-signature, there will be notification that the citizen does give his or her, let's say, permission for the data to be used. That's what about the digital platforms. But in terms of the data used by the private entities, such as banks or insurance institutions, this is done on spot. So when I come to the bank, for example, first of all, the bank employee asks me on paper whether I do give my concern. And only after signing the relevant, there's only one paper that I do give my consent for the data to be taken about me from other institutions through this exchange tool and be used by the bank. Only after that, the bank employee can use that data and can make relevant, let's say, transactions or operations. So in terms of the digital field, this is notification. There is notification that's sent to the citizen. In terms of the private sector, like bank entities, there is like the question and the consent, which is given on spot.
Thank you. Maybe I have a question related to the benefits and how this link, let's say, at family level. So many of the examples you provided focused on, let's say, individual benefits, right? In some countries, there's also the consideration of the family or household situation, and potentially putting a sort of a cap to the benefit amount that can be received by a family unit or a household unit. Do you have something similar, or all the benefits are considered like as individual and independent entitlements?
Well, in our country, we do have some payments that are calculated based, for example, on the income, or let's say the capital of the person. For example, let's say the pension itself. If the person has the sufficient pension capital, or there is a experience requirement, like if I'm not mistaken, there should be 25 years of experience, then yes, in this case, the person will receive the pension. If no, the requirement is not met, in this case, the person will receive the social benefit, and the social benefit is the precise number. And the same is about the assistance, the state targeted social assistance. So in some cases, the payments, they are as a precise, let's say, numbers, amounts, but in some cases they may vary depending on the, let's say, income of the person, experience, and other details. Also, if, for example, I don't know whether you remember in my presentation, during the appointment of the pension proactive mechanism, there was one point related to the verification within the internal subsystems of the Ministry of Labor. So the mechanism checks not only the pension capital of the person, but also checks whether the person already receives any payments. If, for example, I'm the disabled person and I'm already receiving the pension for disability, and I'm appointed now the pension for age, then the mechanism will also decide which one to keep. And the mechanism decides for the, let's say, benefit of the person and appoints the amount which is higher. If, for example, the disability pension is lower than the retirement age pension, then the retirement age pension will be appointed to the person. So it depends. It varies depending on the types of the payments. Some of them are fixed, and some of them, they depend on some factors.
Thank you. And maybe just a quick follow-up. I understand that there's a possibility, so let's say that the system actually try to maximize the choice of the benefit in the interest of the individual. Are these benefits eligible to anyone independently of the household in which they live? So let's say if one is in a very wealthy household, would they still be entitled to this benefit?
If we're talking about the pension, if the person is from the wealthy family, most probably he worked and has the sufficient pension capital. So we do not consider whether the person is from the wealthy family or from poor. In case of the person is coming from the poor family, and like there is some calculations related to the living wage, the minimum wage, and so on. Based on that, the person can apply for the state-targeted social assistance. But if we're talking about the pension and disability benefits, they do not look at the status of the family, whether the family is poor or wealthy. So this is just the fixed process which is reflected in our legislation. It doesn't consider it doesn't take into account the status of the family. The status of the family is an issue and is the, let's say, the element to be, let's say, checked during the application to the state-targeted social assistance. In this case, yes, we check what's the income of each family member who is inside that family, what do they have, and other details. But if we're talking about wealthy families, in most cases, they do not apply for this benefit.
Thank you very much for the clarification. And of course, well noted on the pension and disability. It was more referred to the other kind of benefits, but the answer is very clear. Thank you. I don't know, Jeremi, if you have further question, or if we pass it back to the organizer.
I think I'm good. I had a lot of my question answered already, so thank you very much. I think Lee and all is yours.
Sounds good. Thank you so much again, Jeremy and also Andrea, for this very lively discussion as well. And I think some of the questions you raised were also asked by our participants in the Q&A session. So let's dive into a little deeper into in terms of the questions that have been raised by our participants. And I just want to mention again, so for any participant, if you have any questions related to the presentation, any thoughts you want to share, definitely take the opportunity while we have the panel of experts and here to help you to address some of them. And I have to also give the credits to our team behind the scene. I think they managed to answer also all the questions by typing the answers. What I'll do is that I'll still go through all the questions because I think some of them super relevant and quite interesting, probably for also larger audience as well. So the first question is regarding the digital identity, which was probably was mentioned, but it probably might want to be a little bit further, like kind of unpack. So one of the attendees was asking about the main challenges in implementing the unique digital identity in Azerbaijan. Has this implementation of a single identity reduced the number of frauds? I saw the Mr. Salahov also provide a comprehensive answer, but I just want to give the floor again to our DOS team colleagues to see if you want to share more details on that.
Mr. Salahov, would you like to elaborate or?
Yes, as I mentioned, Mr. Yan, I wrote the answer. That process was that when we digitalized and when the government gave ID-based identification number for the citizens, we try to minimize the expenses for the citizens, because that process, when a citizen gets the digital ID, he gets through apps, and he can access all the information related to the governmental bodies, and he can access their information and can get related information and give another organization body. That's why we switch to the digital ID form in our country. It works. It's still earlier, and it works very quickly, and every person and our citizens try to learn how to go inside of social field and other fields, how to go digitalization processes, and they try to catch up them, and we try to help them to support them in this situation. That's the point.
Also, just one addition. So the e-signatures and their integration is mainly like the field of activities of the Ministry of Digital Development and Transport. In our case, what also I can add, well, e-signatures, for example, before a couple of years ago, we had only mobile ID. Like you had to go to the particular institution, you had to order the mobile ID. It was taking some time, but now we moved smoothly to the face recognition, the biometrics one, which can be done within a couple of minutes. You just download the application. You will add just some initial but crucial data related to the personal identification number, ID details, and you scan like the face details. After that, on the process behind that application, there will be the checking of the data. On the one side, the biometrics, because in our country, in the ID, probably you notice on the picture, there was the photo as well. So there is opportunity to check the photo provided with the photo which is already in the database, in that ID, in that linked to that personal identification number. So in our country, the biometrics signature is getting popular as well, because it takes a couple of minutes and it's affordable for most, or for the wider, let's say, community and our society.
Okay, thank you so much for providing further details on this. Sometimes I feel like we can even have a more dedicated sessions, particularly I think the ID system is one of the kind of hot topic among many of our supporters of the DCI. So Karima raised a question regarding what was the impact of this advanced digitalization on social work interventions or jobs in the social protection deliveries. I know that in the presentation, we covered the advantages on specific initiative, but I think from Karima's point is that they want to know, or particularly on the employee side, on the government side, like what are some of the benefits or kind of a tangible outcomes that you think would be considered as major achievements of this digitalization journey?
Okay, thank you very much for this question. In addition to the information provided by our expert, Mr. Kerimov, I will add some other details. So, well, we move forward with the digitalization process, and we reduce all the manual work, all the paperwork. That's why, as a logical step of this, the number of the administrative staff is going down as well, it's reducing. I will not be able to provide precise detail numbers, but yes, the number of the administrative staff, it was reduced. But more than that, it was like, you know, there was the redirection. Like those who don't know the business processes, they were able to move forward to the data analytics. They were able to move forward to the, let's say, strategic directions. So it was like the trigger that allowed to increase some skills, some capacities. But I also need to mention that we didn't make the transition to all the digital right away. We still keep some traditional methods. We do have the DOS centers. And in our DOS centers, like on the picture, you probably thought there were employees that were sitting on separate windows and were providing services. So they're still like employees who work with citizens. Yes, there was a reduction in staff, but most of them, they are involved in the activities of the DOS centers. Also, considering the scope and the audience of the DOS centers, in the DOS center, there is the volunteering program as well with the younger population. And in order to let them somehow contribute to this field, to the assistance to the elder and sensitive, let's say, direction of the population, we involve them as volunteers as well. And the volunteers of those centers, they cover different ages. They're young ones, the recent graduates of the universities, as well as we involve the elder population as well, because you know, they want to be in the society, they want to do some work and contribute to these processes as well. So I would say like this, as the digitalization wasn't that sharp, it was smooth. That's why we didn't feel and the changes in terms of the administrative situations, they weren't that dramatic. We're still going that process, and more or less it's also clear for our employees, for those involved in the social provision, that which fields are important, in which field we need to go further and we need to improve ourselves.
Yeah, thank you so much for the answer. And I do want to also acknowledge that it's really amazing that the team or in Azerbaijan, they're still taking into consideration that having the non-digital options available, which is always essential. And because we know that when we serve the citizens, they will have their own preference, their own personal circumstances, their own ability or inability to access these services. So that's why I definitely will accept your invitation. If I ever have a chance to visit Azerbaijan, I would love to see how those smart DOS stands are operating from just a picture. It looks really modern. And another thing I also noted that in the kind of a future roadmap, your team did put the digital literacy as one of the area of work. So as you mentioned the example of having the younger generations to support maybe the elderly populations where they feel less comfortable with the services, I think it's a great way to go and should be continued. But also much more widely, not only on the digital level, but also in terms of the accessibility, right? So there's a lot of things to be taken into consideration when we digitalize the services. So next questions regarding the okay, so I think it was also brought up by Andrea during the discussion, because I think it was really amazing that how the Azerbaijan was managed to centralize a lot of the IT services, which with also the support across the board. Unfortunately, it's not always the case in many of other contexts. So I think the question raised by Leomar is really about this the unification of IT of Azerbaijan bodies. Like what did we receive any resistance? And also what about all the IT analysis technicians working previously in those positions, and their job might be impacted, or how maybe the Azerbaijan government continue to help them rescaling to adapt in terms of the new digital roadmaps. And I see also the team mentioned that because all government agencies are very interested in this centralization, which is great. I think the political will also played a very important part. I think there was a kind of a top-down kind of a push or drive, right? But anything else you want to share maybe on this point?
At this point, I want to thank my team members as well, because they responded to all the questions in the chat. Yes. In our case, the decision to centralize all the IT processes and the management in one institution, well, I wouldn't say that we observed the same situation in other institutions, especially the governmental ones. No. This is, as I mentioned, was one of the steps coming based on the decree in this field. And as I see from the question, not all the experts, technical experts of our center, they are public servants. They're not. Mm. In our institution, we have a little bit more than 200 employees. Mostly we have 6 main IT related departments as represented on the slide, and all the projects that are, let's say, organized, digital project in social field, they are done and established by our own experts. So we do not involve external experts. All the IT analytics, all the product managers, project managers, and the whole chain of the process of developing the digital projects, all these experts, they are inside our institution. Some of our, let's say, I would say, those during the centralization process, some of our staff members, especially the management, they were coming from the ministry itself. That's why there may be some civil servants among us, but not all of them. And as was mentioned in the chat by Mr. Karimov as well, actually the government agencies, they are interested in centralization. because it's quite difficult to manage all the fragmented projects when you know one institution, like one department in the public employment agency, has its own project related to the employment. But they do need to be somehow interlinked with other institutions related, for example, to the state social services or other directions. So centralization allows for the smooth operation when we're able to collaborate in one institution, all the technical experts. And that's why we may not observe it in all the state agencies in our country, but definitely we tried it. We tried it, as you can see, quite recently. The center was established at the end of 2021. Like we're 2-3 years of our functioning, but we see the results. We see that centralized management of IT projects, especially if we have diverse institutions under the ministry, is quite difficult. And the centralization makes it easier. Makes it easier to monitor, to prevent any issues or miscommunication that may happen. That's why this is a good example, seeing all the management from the single center, and that's the opportunity for the integrated process. So yes, this is good as the answer for the question. And no, not all of the members of the Innovation Center are public servants.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And I just want to add based on what you present as well, it's quite important to have the right stakeholders that engage and sit together and discuss. As mentioned, the communication is so important. It's oftentimes we think about a lot of challenges are not only purely focusing on the technical, but actually behind the scene are those key stakeholders, decision makers who needs to be consulted, be also reach the consensus, and so to agree in terms of the right way and this unified approach to go ahead, and then the work would be much easier and smoother as well, right? So, and again, to your points, that depends on also the needs from the citizen, the party might change as well. It's never happening just one day in terms to fully digitize all the services and take a kind of a staged approach is probably also the smartest way as well. So the next question is I think is well covered. This is regarding whether the single social registry can be done like via the remote apps or done in person. As we discussed that there are multiple like interface and kind of entry points for citizens to avail the services. I think the second part was not answered in Mr. Salahov's reply. Basically, they're asking if can anyone register or only those with a certain income profiles, but again, really depends on the service itself as well, right?
All the citizens, they can register in the system and they can see their details. So it doesn't depend on the income. For example, I am myself, I do have the personal cabinet on the unified registry. Yeah. And I can see all the details. For example, regardless of the fact that I'm not the recipient on the pension, I'm not the somehow involved in the disability and rehabilitation processes. So everyone can register because Unified Social Registry is mostly about being informed about the social information about oneself in this field. So, okay, I may not receive the pension, but maybe once I ever made an application to the ministry or called to the ministry, then, there is the dashboard with all the directions, like 15, 20 directions of the ministry's activities. Some of them, they will have the right color, which means that I use that service. I called to the ministry. So this registry is the opportunity to check the information. It doesn't depend on the income. Those who have low income, they can register and check information. For those who have higher income, it will be beneficial as well, because this is the informative. This is the opportunity for citizens to check their public data. Yes, we do have CIS. We do have subsystems, information about the pension of the person in our pension subsystem. Yes, but this is what we have, what the ministry says. But what is seen to the person? Why the person had to call to give the, let's say, personal identification details, to clarify what's my pension capital? Why these extra steps, as was earlier mentioned by Andrea, extra steps? Why those extra steps are needed? If I can just with my e-signature, I can verify, I can open the cabinet and check all the data.
Yeah.
So all the information which can be shown, which is available, it's seen in the cabinet of the person.
I just want to add a little information. A social register, it's not means everyone have to register and he or her appears cabinet, social cabinet. Everyone in Azerbaijan citizen have own social cabinet in our system. When he registers through the single social register, he can get access to your her or his information through this application. But in generally, he or she has own social cabinet in social sphere. Just I want to add this moment.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think ultimately it's really to give the data of the citizen back to the citizen. So they are in control of in terms of what access, when to access, how to access of the relevant social data. And I also loved in terms that I think during the presentation, this kind of user-centric kind of ideology was brought up so many times in terms of kind of a guides all the policies design, the solution designs. So I know that I noted that so far we have 1.6 million users of the unified social registries, but the number is still continue growing. And maybe in a year or two, when we ask the data, probably will be more citizens start to benefit from those digital services as well. So the next question.
The data on the slide that you're mentioning. So we have the a little bit more than 10 million of population in our country, but those who ever had any interactions with the ministry or our systems, we do count them as the population served. So with the services, we already covered over 87% of our population. Sorry, I think you were continuing and I...
No. Thank you so much for that point of clarification as well. I was laughing also. There was one comment from Leomard who said that sorry for asking too many questions. I just want to say again, this is exactly the right place to ask questions. So definitely don't feel shy. So this question I think was also well covered. Leomard was asking that do your agency collect the family members for the purpose of a single social registries? So your colleague answered that it's based on the personal identification number. So by having that ID, then a lot of information can be already retrieved using the digital bridge, like the platform, right?
Exactly. As you mentioned, since 2011, there is data pinning. So all the data is linked to the personal identification number of the person. So all the data in all the fields, as they are interlinked, any information can be obtained from that, from any governmental informational database.
Amazing. So the next question is regarding how often do the update of the single social registries? And I saw the replies, the update goes on daily basis.
Yes, that's the process that goes on the backstages, so to say. It's done on a daily basis with Mr.
Some
Salahov.
processes goes in real time, but some of them goes through the daily updates in social registry.
Okay. due to the limited time we have, so I'll just quickly I'll go through a few of the remaining questions. And thanks again for the team who been providing those answers as well. Maybe the last question that's shared with this group is that so some of participants are wondering the data privacy law and what actions been taken to gain the trust of a particular vulnerable populations to adopt those online services.
Okay, so we have the expert in this field as well who joined us today. Mr. Huseynova also responded in this chat, but maybe after the webinar, we will be able to elaborate a little bit more on that. In our country, along with the personal data, we have the data privacy law as well, which is followed by all the institutions. And based on that, considering this law and all the details inside it, we provide the information to citizens by applying the relevant measures, protection measures as well. And based on that, information about the benefits and other services of online services.
Amazing. Okay, so before I hand over to my colleagues Anna for the closing remarks, I just would like to extend my heartfelt thank you to our speakers and also our expert discussants again for sharing all your valuable insights and knowledge today. And of course, also thank you for everyone who joined and participate. I think it's very clear that Azerbaijan's digital transformation journey in social protection is truly inspiring and also demonstrates how the interoperable and innovative technology can fundamentally change the way government serves the citizens, right? And by creating those systems that are more efficient, transparent, and user-friendly. This example really serves as a kind of a blueprint for what the future of a social service could look like. So just want to thank you again for the active participation in today's session, or Chok Salon, as we say in Azerbaijani. Now over to you, Anna, for the closing remarks.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for being here today. We are getting to the close of this wonderful event. I would like to thank you again, the presenters from Azerbaijan, our discussant, as well as our wonderful moderator. I would also like to invite you all for our next session that is coming on December 10. Yeah, the case is still to be confirmed, but you can also register in the socialprotection.org, and we'll also share the details on our social media channels as soon as we have them. Apart from this webinar series, we also would like to invite you to participate into our standards for interoperability. So we currently are working on seven different packages of interoperability standards. We already have our civil registry and vital statistics standards launched. And we just launched the committee for the disability registry this month. So this is also an invitation for all of you to join this. On to the next slide. Yes, so yeah, on the standards, we work on process, data standards, and also API standards. And we welcome you to join our GitHub and also Gitbook, where you can review all the material that is already being shared, and you also are able to participate and contribute with the standards. Yeah, and we also invite you to support the DCI, sharing the existing materials, reviewing outputs, joining our discussions and workshops like this webinar series. You can also submit your draft standards for consensus in our standards meetings. And of course, you're also welcome to join the standard committees. Finally, I invite you to join our social media channels. You can also write us via our email. And yeah, thank you. It was a pleasure to listen to this event today. And yeah, I'm sure you all had a wonderful time and very informative time with our speakers. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you for everyone.
Thank you to everyone.
Thank you.
Thank
Good. Thank you.
Thank you.